It's time for Success in Real Estate with Frankie Griffin, owner and broker in charge of the Palmetto Success Team, certified residential specialist, accredited buyer representative, military relocation professional, real estate appraiser, and author of Success in Real Estate. If you are interested in buying or selling a home, investing in real estate, or having your home appraised, you will enjoy Success in Real Estate. Now, here's Frankie Griffin.
I want to go ahead and start out with some things that I've called it my seller's toolkit. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about my buyer toolkit, so I'm going to flip it over this time. And all this information you can always find on my website. You can just go to www.frankiegriffin.com. Again, just frankiegriffin.com. Any information you want about me, hopefully you'll be able to find it there. Certainly my contact information is there. But you'll see a link for both buyers and sellers and information that I think you'll find to be very useful if you're in the market to buy or sell. And the first thing I want to just talk about, obviously, we have to create a marketing plan. And when I say marketing plan, obviously there needs to be some reason to have a buyer want to come look at your home. And a lot of that has to do with just, you've heard me say this time and time again, the appearance. 90%, actually it's about 92%, of all buyers are searching for their home themselves online. And what are they looking at? Pictures, the photographs, and that's what they're going to be looking for. So when we're putting this marketing plan together, it just has to be geared around internet marketing, because that's where buyers are looking. That's where they are, and they're going to expect to see something very nice, especially with these photos. They don't want to see anything that's just like it's dark, and you got these shadows casting everywhere, and then occasionally you'll see pictures of a room, and all I can see is a corner of a room because their camera won't shoot the room like it needs to be. All kind of issues there. Well, with the Palmetto Success Team, we've got a number of things we like to do to make your property much more marketable than I would say the average house in the Midlands area anyway. Because we're going to have Jerry Bilton, he's our resident professional real estate photographer, to go out and actually shoot all the photos. So I don't do any of that. I'll be the first to admit I don't know what I'm doing with the camera. I do know how to push the button, and I'll get a picture. But somehow Jerry can push the button, and he has a photograph, which actually tells a tremendous story about your property. It looks awesome. Every client that Jerry has shot for has had nothing but positive things to say. Does a great job. But those are things that we provide at the Palmetto Success Team. Some other things that we're going to do is we're going to have your property appraised. So there will be an appraisal available so that buyers can actually see that when they walk into your home. There will be no question in the buyer's mind when it comes to what this house might be worth. And as the seller, you're going to find this will actually give you a huge negotiating leverage by having this appraisal, because you're going to have some buyers and buyer agents will come in and try to talk down the price and talk about all the reasons why it's not worth what you're asking and so forth. Well, if you have that appraisal and you can show it to them, it's really hard to argue the fact that the house is not worth what you're asking for when you've got an appraisal here that says it is worth it. So we're going to provide that. We're going to have your home appraised. Then we're going to have some inspections done. Again, this makes the buyer feel very comfortable before they start making offers. When they can see the condition of the property before they even make the offer, this is going to be a big deal. But I'll bring in a home inspector. We're going to have, so that we'll have that inspection report available for buyers to look at. and we're going to have a termite inspection. We're going to have the heating and air inspection. But all of these things we're going to provide. This is something the Palmetto Success Team does to get your home marketed properly. And I know you're going to see a much stronger offer from buyers. Buyers don't mind making a good offer, most of them anyway, if they feel like the home is worth what they're offering. But if there's something questionable, like we're not sure what the condition is, we're not sure what the value is, then obviously they're going to be very, very conservative on their offer. And so I think these things will strengthen your negotiating ability as a seller for sure. And then one last thing I'll just touch on when it comes to the marketability. Again, with the Palmetto Success Team, we're going to provide a home warranty for that property. Now, that's going to do a few things. First of all, when these home warranties, they come, you can get what we call a buyer warranty, or you can get the seller warranty, or you can get both. And we're going to go ahead and provide both. And that's something we provide for you when we market your home. The buyer warranty or buyer coverage just means buyer gets 1 year's worth of coverage from the time they close, obviously for 1 year after that. But the seller coverage actually means, seller, you're covered from the time the house goes on the market up until it actually closes. So if anything breaks or any problems with your house, it's more than likely going to be covered under that warranty. All right, well, let's go straight to our phone lines where we've got James. James, how you doing today, buddy?
Frankie, how you doing?
Oh, this is a fine day today. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. I wanted to tell you, I'm sitting here listening in, and I think it's almost masterful how you lay some of that stuff out where where you really take a lot of the risk out of the equation for the seller. It's quite a service that you provide as part of your team.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
I also want you to know that I'll see you tomorrow in class. I'm in your first year sales class, and so I look forward to it. And another thing I'll say, Frankie, is I feel like everybody that's taking that class, I think, will be a lot better real estate agents. Well, while I got you, I do want to ask you a question. That I live in a community that has an HOA. I'm actually part of the HOA, and one of the things that we struggle with, the homes are all vinyl, and they have a tendency every year and a half to have heavy mildew on different sides. So one of the things that we can enforce is that you take the mildew off the house. My question is, we have the option, if the mildew is not taken off by a certain date, we have the option to fine the homeowners $75 a day until they take it off. I'm thinking it's a much nicer gesture for us to perhaps just get their home power washed by a professional that's insured and everything, and then assess them the cost of the treatment instead of fining them $75 until that just racks up, and then they've got a much bigger problem. Mm-hmm. Do you see anything wrong with that approach, or?
Well, I'd be afraid to answer that. That sounds like an Andy On kind of question where you might want to have an attorney give you some advice. I know where I get the issue you're talking about, where sometimes homeowners may not want to comply or does not take actions as required according to the covenants and restrictions. But in terms of the legal rights the HOA has to send somebody onto your property to do something like that, I don't know. So I would certainly hate to tell you that's a good idea. I mean, it sounds reasonable to me, but just understand I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to the legal matters. But I would recommend, and hopefully Andy will be calling in probably another 15 or 20 minutes, so maybe you can call back and talk to him if he comes on the air.
Well, I'll be glad to. I'm going to stay listening.
Okay.
And also, while I got you, like I said, I'm a student in your class. So I'll see you tomorrow. And I also wanted to tell you, I look forward to the final sales class. And while I got you, I was hopeful that you could. I don't know if there's any discounts available for students calling in and asking for it on the air. But if so, I'd love to take advantage of it.
Well, Well, since you put me on the spot, I think that the only fair thing to do would give you a $50 discount. I'll be more than happy to do that. And,
well, I appreciate it. I'll remind you tomorrow.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you calling in, and you can tell everybody you got a $50 discount now for the next class.
I'm going to tell them.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Frank.
Take care. All right, we want to go straight back to our phone lines where I've got my mortgage go-to gal, Miss Erica West. How you doing, Miss Erica?
I'm doing well, and yourself, Frankie?
Oh, it's always a fine day, and I know you've been incredibly busy.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, yeah, it's a good thing. But every time I try to call you or get in touch with you, I have to wait till like 10 at night.
I know.
Until
so
when
bad.
you get done with all these other people.
Well, the busiest time for me is actually from about 3 o'clock on. That's when everybody either starts getting off work or starts having time at work, and then, of course, when people get off of work. So I do the majority of my work from about 3 to 10 at night. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, for those of you that don't recognize this voice, this is Erica West. She's a mortgage consultant with Mortgage Network, and she is the mortgage go-to gal. And, you know, Erica, I've got, and I'm sure you probably got some things you want to talk about, but could I ask you a question first?
Sure.
You know, and this is something you and I were talking about in earlier in the week or last week or sometime, but I get this question a lot, and it's dealing with helping a tenant that may be renting a property that's actually considering purchasing the property. Mm-hmm. And I know you know where I'm going with this, but if I own this property and I'm wanting to sell it to a tenant, and you know, it's a lot it's a lot different. Let me put it that way. To apply for refinancing, I think, versus a new loan, or the criteria is a little different. And is it true that if the tenant makes a certain number of payments on time, that sort of changes up the financing? Or how it can be financed, or talk to me about how we can make this happen.
Sure. Andy will be perfect to chime in on this when he calls in, because some of it, you know, we need legal help in how we set up the lease to own. In order for a tenant to live in a property and pay rent, and then decide that they want to purchase it, in order for it to qualify as a refinance transaction, that tenant, I believe, and Andy will correct me if I'm wrong, has to be on title.
Right.
So that they have ownership interest in the house, which is why they just have to refinance it instead of purchase it. So that kind of has to be set up prior to or very shortly after them becoming your tenant. Mm-hmm. Besides that, they're going to have to do just a regular purchase. The only caveat that I see is FHA has a kind of a rule called the identity of interest, to where they want to make sure that all parties are equally representing themselves within a transaction. They consider that if a tenant and a landlord want to now become seller and purchaser, that they need to have been tenant and landlord for at least 6 months before they're eligible for an FHA loan, because they have an identity of interest. They have an earlier relationship that precedes their relationship as purchaser and seller. And so they want to make sure that everybody's acting on their own interest, so they put that 6 month caveat in there. So, you know, I tell people it usually actually applies to people when they're looking for houses and they decide they want to rent for 3 months, 4 months until they get their credit up or until they save money for their down payment. The only problem is if that purchaser wants to use FHA, they actually need to stay in that property for 6 months in order to purchase it then, or there needs to be an existing purchase sales contract prior to them moving in.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. Now, what if the tenant's already there, maybe been living there for a year or two? And
then you're fine.
And well, so do we just apply for, I assume we have to have some kind of agreement like the lease purchase or whatever. But what would I have to do? So if I got a tenant that decides right now, he's just a tenant right now, there's no lease purchase, but he wants to purchase the home, what's the next step?
I would create a purchase and sales contract.
Okay.
Unfortunately, since they just decide now, month, 18 or month 19, when, they're living there, if they want to purchase it, you guys are starting from square one as far as negotiations for sales price.
Right.
Because all the money that they paid previous didn't have a contingency on them purchasing the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't believe that there would be any obligation for the owner to consider those rents towards down payment.
Okay. Well, as always, see, that's why you're the best. And I wanted you to talk about that because, that's a common scenario right now because there are a lot of people that are really forced to rent, but for, like you said, maybe credit issues keep them from applying or being able to get a loan. And maybe this is an option to look at.
Yes.
So how do we get in touch with Erica West if we want to do something like this?
Absolutely. You can call me on my cell phone. My number is 803-528-5019. You can email me at ewest@mortgagenetwork.com, or you can search for me on Facebook. Just search for the Mortgage Go-To Gal. Please go there and like my page, and send any questions or information that you'd like to see. Just let me know, and I'll put it on there for you.
Well, Miss Erica, I can't thank you enough, and I hope you have a marvelous weekend.
I will do the same. Thank you, Frankie.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
And in the first segment, we were talking about some things dealing with the marketing of the property. And obviously, marketing property means making it appealing to buyers. And, we talked about having the appraisal done, all these pre-inspections done, having a home warranty that will be on the property. And probably one of the biggest pieces of that is having professional quality looking photos. Again, Jerry Bilton does such an awesome job. You can certainly go on my website and look at some of the things he's done for me. But you can also go on Jerry's website and just look. You take a look at the work he's done, and I think you'll agree. It's very professional looking. It looks awesome. But Jerry's website is what is it, Jerry? imagesbyeagle.com. I had it on my tongue, and then it just went away. But www.imagesbyeagle.com, and you will see just how professional these photos look. And this is what you want buyers to see. This is it. Well, the next step in this process is now we got to make sure that when we put the house on the market, it's obviously it's got to be priced right, and which is another reason we do the appraisal. And now, and I keep saying appraisal. This is different than a realtor's comparative market analysis, or CMA you hear. The CMA is a very informal process in trying to determine value, and I'm not trying to downplay that. I don't mean that. But by having an appraisal done, that's a formal process. There's an awful lot of work. There's a lot of analysis and research that goes into that. And I think most people probably give a little more credit towards the appraisal than they would just a market analysis. So we're going to have it appraised. And again, these are things that we do at the Palmetto Success Team for our seller clients. And then you're going to find that this will also give the buyer much more confidence when they go to make their offer. And just knowing what the house is worth makes it a whole lot easier when it comes to making the offer. That's for sure. The other thing you want to also consider when you're trying to figure out the price, and we will help you with that or show it to you, is to take a look at what your competition is. How many other homes around you, similar properties, are currently on the market for sale? And what are they being offered at? What's their price? Because you certainly want to be in that same same arena, that's for sure. Again, we don't want to be overpriced. That's the last thing you want to do, is be overpriced or underpriced, so that only leaves one more price, and that's the perfect price. And that's where we're trying to go with this thing. All right, the next step, or the thing we need to go ahead and prepare for, is the actual showing, showtime, if you will. And this is probably one of the most inconvenient things you can probably do as a homeowner. There's nothing convenient about selling your home. You're going to have people, the public, people you don't know in many cases, coming into your home wanting to look at it. And, I mean, that's just part of the process. And I don't know of any other way to do it as of yet, but that's the way we do it for now. But they're going to be coming into your home, and it's usually they want to come see it, it seems like, at the most inopportune time. So it has to stay in show-ready condition. You got to keep the house picked up. It's got to be cleaned. You want to make sure it smells good in the house. And I'm going to tell you, if you're the homeowner, you're not the one that needs to make the decision on how it smells. You've been living there for quite some time, more than likely. You're probably used to whatever it smells like, and maybe pay no attention to the smell. Have a neighbor or friend or somebody come in and just ask them to be honest. What does it smell like when you come into my house? Did you feel good about it Brian's over here laughing at me now, and he's got me sidetracked. But and I'm not trying to be funny or facetious. I'm telling you, that's a major selling point, or a not so selling point. People or buyers are paying attention to this kind of stuff. Does the house smell clean, warm, inviting? That's what they're looking for, and we'll certainly help you with that when we get to that point. Now, some other things that you want to consider. Protecting yourself and your property. Like I said earlier, you're going to have people coming into your property or into your home, and most of which, more than likely, you don't know. So we are depending and counting on the real estate professionals to bring qualified individuals only to the house, making sure, and I hope for any real estate agents that are listening, we have to make sure that when buyers are looking at houses, this is not just a house they're looking at. They're going in somebody else's home. This is their private residence, and we have to be very respectful when we're inside another person's home. But as the seller, I would certainly require that no buyers look at this house, or nobody comes into this house if they have not been pre-approved and talked to a lender, actually applied for a loan. And I would want to see a copy of that pre-approval. If you haven't done that, that indicates you're not very serious. And quite frankly, if it's my home, I don't want just a bunch of people walking and wandering through my house. And you're not very serious. You don't know what you want to do yet. So that's one way to kind of ensure that the people that are coming through are, in fact, qualified. But again, seller, always make sure you put up, hide, lock, whatever you need to do, any collectibles or valuables. You don't want to leave stuff just laying out. As a real estate agent, if I'm showing the home, I'm certainly with my clients at all times. Not because I think they're trying to do anything they shouldn't do, but just to be safe. But at the end of the day, if you've got a little small, a nice watch, for example, and you got it laid out on your dresser, I mean, that thing can disappear pretty quickly, and somebody that may be with that buyer may or may not see that. So just make sure you've put away anything that is collectible. We certainly don't need to try to tempt people into doing things that they should not be doing. Excuse me. And one of the most important things I would like to just caution you of, if you have children, make sure your children know the house is for sale, which means we could very well have people just come up and knock on the door, interested or having questions about the house. I would not want my children to open the door to people and we don't know who they are. So I would make sure the children know, do not open the doors. You come get me or call me or let me know if somebody's at the door. I don't want my small children opening the doors to strangers. Again, nothing personal, but we do have to take the precautions to keep our children safe. If you have pets, that's a tough one right there. I know everybody loves their pets as much as they love their own children, and some of them I think they love their pets more than their own children. But, buyers are not most of them are not very fond of trying to look at a house and a cat or a little dog is running around and jumping on you. And to me, especially the cats, they like to just wrap around your leg, it seems like. And it really kind of gets on my nerves, quite frankly. But not that I'll do anything to hurt them, but it's just kind of irritating. And you really don't want to we don't want anything there that could distract the buyer from looking at what could potentially be their new home. So try to put up the pets, put them in a cage, put them outside, whatever you need to do. Anything we need to do to make the house show better. And we want to go straight to our phone lines right now where we've got Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Frankie. How you doing this morning?
Oh, it's a blessed day today. I hope you're doing well.
Absolutely. Frankie, could you give me a home warranty company?
Well, there's several of them out there. I like American Home Shield. They've always done very good by me. And there's you talk to a lot of people about these home warranties, Mike, and about half of them, or half the people you talk to, they'll like them. In fact, they love them, and then the other half absolutely hate them. Has been my experience. And
why would they hate them?
Well, you hear a lot of people, they'll say every time something breaks, I call in and they say it's not covered. Obviously, if that's the case, then you know what? I don't think I'd like it either. But I have not had that experience. American Home Shield, I can't think of a single time I've called in to get something repaired, and they didn't do it. I mean, they repaired it.
Would you happen to have their number? Or
I don't have their number with me right now. I can tell you they do have a website, and I'm pretty sure it's www.ahs.com. Stands for American Home Shield. ahs.com. And I think you can find pretty much all the information about them you want to, but I think they do a really good job.
Okay. And Frankie, I'm about to call you here before too long and put this old homestead on the market.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And you got my number, Mike?
I sure do.
Awesome.
Yes, I do.
Well, very good. Mike, I hope you have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you. You too, bro.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. Again, if you have any questions, give me a call, 799-8255. And in the meantime, I'm going to continue talking about my seller's toolkit. And the next step in this process is now hopefully we've got the right buyers in the house. They like it. They're ready to make an offer. So now we got to put this deal together. And this is just me. Now, I understand a lot of agents don't do things the way I do it, and that's fine. In fact, I kind of like that idea, quite frankly. But, one of the questions I think, if you're thinking about putting your home on the market and you're interviewing real estate agents, which I always recommend, by the way, I would certainly ask this question. Ask the agent if they intend, when an offer comes in, how do we handle that? In other words, do we just sort of wait for the offer, excuse me, does the offer just get emailed to us and then we present that to the seller and then say, well, you know what, we're $8,000 apart. This isn't going to work. So we just counter back, increasing the price by $8,000 or $10,000. And just sort of go back and forth with these counter offers? Or is your agent going to actually sit down with the other agent and negotiate this deal. And I think that's sort of a lost art in this industry, and I don't really understand why exactly. Negotiating, to me, that's the fun part about real estate. Being able to sit down with somebody else and trying to bring this deal together. Now, if I'm representing you as the seller or the buyer for that matter, I take pride in when I tell you I'm going to represent you, that means I will sit down, I will go meet with the other agent and go over the offer. And let's talk about the offer, the purchase agreement, and if there's some shortfalls or things that won't work, then let's talk about some of the ways that we can go about bringing these two sides together and make it work out. I just don't think it works out a lot of the times when we just start countering back and forth. The problem is, if you don't sit down and negotiate first, then how do you know what to counter? It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I'll just give you a real quick example. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just give you a real quick example why I think the negotiating is important. Say, for example, the buyer makes an offer, and in the offer, which is very common nowadays, the buyer's requesting the seller to pay some portion of, or in a lot of cases, all of the buyer's closing cost. Again, nothing wrong with that. But maybe let's say the buyer's asking for $4,000 in closing cost, but we happen to be $4,000 away from what the seller needs to be able to sell their house. Well, on the seller's side, that seems like maybe this is a easy fix. We'll counter back saying, buyer, you pay your own closing cost, and then we'll accept the purchase price that you've offered. I understand the rationale behind that, but the problem may very well be buyer has no money for closing cost, none, and which is very common, which is typically why the buyer's requesting the seller to pay these closing costs, because they don't have that money. Y'all, listen, there's a lot of buyers out there, a lot of people out there. They can afford the house, or at least they can afford their payments. They just don't have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in their checking account right now that they can write that check for at closing. So we need help from the seller to make this thing happen. Well, you don't know what the situation is for the buyer if you don't sit down and talk to the buyer's agent. And then I've had some people say, well, we can't discuss that part of it. That's confidential information. Well, okay, maybe not, but the fact of the matter is, buyer, if you don't have any money for closing cost, then are closing costs negotiable for you? Well, no, they're not. Seller, you're going to have to pay the closing costs, or this buyer cannot buy. It's just that simple. So if that's the case, we need to go ahead and put that on the table so we know not to counter something that the buyer just cannot do. So the more we sit down and talk about these things, the negotiating, if you will, the more we can do for our clients, and I love that part. Y'all, we are about out of time, but thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please go to my website. You'll find all my contact information, www.frankiegriffin.com, just frankiegriffin.com. There you'll see my email address, my cell phone. It's right there. Please have a safe weekend. Thank you for listening to Success in Real Estate on the Point.